Welcome to month 4 of our block of the month 2023. And this month we're going to making this one. I really like this one. It's got lots of intricate pieces, but it's not hard. We'll just take our time, make sure everything's going the right direction, and then it goes together. It's really fun. So let's go ahead and get started. And I've got all my little pieces cut. And I've already marked the diagonal line on all of the little white squares, the smaller light blue squares, and then the navy smaller squares as well. So we're just going to do a couple of the easy corners on these and then on these blocks as well. And we're just going to orient the diagonal line just like it's going to be sewn into the block. So it's going to be that way and then this way. So hopefully you can see how those lines are. And we're just going to go ahead and sew all of those now. Okay, I've pressed all my pieces and then I just pressed them to one side on the back towards the square that I just added. And now I'm going to lay out my pieces on my design board so that it matches where I need to have everything to sew it into place. So I'm kind of looking at this one over here, making sure my orientation is correct. And on this one, it has the blue background where it is the longest side is touching the navy. And then the longest blue is at the outer, so that takes care of my center section. And then these pieces, the white goes to the outsides. The longer white edge is facing the center and the outside of the block. So when I pick them up, I want to keep them going the same way. And so I'm just going to pick it up and I'm going to sew these pieces right sides together with my 1/4 inch seam and then add the other piece so that we can have all of our subunits completed. So we're going to go ahead and sew that now. Okay, and then we can just line those up, and I've pressed to the, on the top and the bottom, I pressed to the larger outside square, and then on the center row, I pressed it to the center, and then when you put those together, they'll just nest right next to each other. Okay, and I'll press that back, and then I'm going to add my last row on here, and then we'll give it a really good press and then do the inside and outside navy borders on there. Okay, looks good. I got everything going in the right direction. And so let's give it a press and put the border. Okay, and now we're going to prep the applique block that we're going to make, and I just want to point out there is a little bit difference in these. And on this block we have the white in the corner so that we get our square block shown, and then we just frame it with that border. And the one we're going to put the circle on has the navy or the same color as our background border. So it kind of looks like that is floating, almost like a circular kind of block. So I'm going to make sure that I have that one that has the same corner fabric here that matches the background. And then I'm going to center on my interfacing piece that's marked with the circle. And then I'm just going to kind of check a line on my block and make sure it's equidistant on both sides. Just kind of find a spot that you can tell looks good. And then I'm just going to put some pins in there to hold that in place, because I definitely don't want that to shift at this point because I got it lined up where I wanted it. And I'm pinning on the inside of the block so that as I'm stitching the circle right on that line, I'm not worried about running over a pin. Okay, and a few more. Okay, let's stitch that into place. Okay, now I'm gonna stitch right on that line, and I've got an open foot so I can see the stitch area. Okay, that looks good. Let's go prep it for turning it the right side out. Okay, now we're going to pinch up the inner facing only, like this, and make a slit. And I'm just going to make a cut so that big enough that I can kind of get my hand in there. And then we're going to gently push that fabric through so that we're turning it right side out now. And then we're just going to work our way all around the block, just opening up that seam, popping it out so that it's got a rounded shape. Okay, and then I'm going to use my turner tool and stick that in there so that the tool is between this, or in the seam allowance and the fabric of the front of the block. And you just want to gently push that out. You want to make sure that you're not pushing on just the inner facing, because that will poke a hole in it. And if that happens, you can just go back and restitch it or kind of tuck it and put a little glue in there. Because basically that's just giving us a nice finished edge that we're going to stitch down. So, and I'm just working all the way around the block to pop that out so that I've got a nice rounded shape. And then I'm going to flatten those back. And then I'm going to give that a good press from the front side. And I'm kind of pressing from the center out. So that will kind of roll that fabric over that inner facing so that the inner facing is not really seen from the outside. It's just holding that finished edge for us. Okay, that looks good. All right, and then I'm going to take my background fabric and I'm just going to give me some side creases here to mark the centers, just so I can kind of get a good idea when I'm lining it up. And this is oversized and we're going to trim it down, so you will have room to trim it down, but if you can kind of get it positioned on there in the center, it'll just be a little bit easier to trim it. So I'm kind of using that crease mark to make sure it's coming down the center of my block and that I have the equidistant amount on each side of the background fabric showing. And that looks good. I'm happy with that. And then here you could do a little glue on the back side. I'm just going to put some pins in there because I do not want it to shift before I can sew it down. And then we're going to go stitch it in place. And then I'm just going to use a blanket stitch, but you could do a straight stitch right along the edge of that. You can hand stitch it down. You can do a zigzag stitch. You could do a decorative stitch on your sewing machine. Just have fun with it and kind of embellish it however you want. Okay, and that's all in place, so we can go stitch that down. Here's our completed blocks side by side. They look good. I love this block. It turned out so neat. I love all the colors in there and just the way it kind of flows around that circle. So it looks good. Thanks for watching.